Is that good?
Yep.
All right.
Dark. Is that good? That's okay.
You guys don't need to see me. Okay, so there's the Parker family, and these are my crazy kids. I have 5 kids. We live here in Provo. I grew up in Arizona. We've lived all over the country. We've lived in Texas and California and Connecticut before moving here. And so I want to talk about basically what I do as an artist. And for context for this career that I've had so far, I'm just going to go through my career timeline really quick. So I started in 1998. In 1998, I was attending Mesa Community College, and my teacher, my high school art teacher, I would stay in touch with him. He said, Jake, you should try for a job at Fox Animation. They have an animation studio here in Phoenix, and you should just go for it because your art's really good, and you should try getting a job there. You'd probably learn a lot on the job. And so I took his advice, and I went to Fox and turned a portfolio in, and after they tested me, they decided to hire me, and I got a job in Fox Animation. As you can see here, that was like the start of it. I knew school would always be there if I needed it, but I didn't think an opportunity like this would come again, so I took it, and I went and worked at Fox Animation. After that, I worked for a little bit at the the Arizona Museum of Natural History, followed by Fanagram Studios, which is a Korean company that made video games. Real Effects for several years, Blue Sky Studios for several years. I came out to Utah and I taught for BYU for about a year. And then I worked for a small educational company here in Provo called Imagine Learning. And then since about 2012 or 12, I think, I became an independent artist just working for myself. So this is my day job career timeline. But on top of that, there was my side projects and my night working stuff, and that's this. So right here, I did my first comic book, and it was called an ash can, and that's where you go and photocopy the comic at Kinko's, and you have them staple it, and then you try and sell them or give them away or whatever. So I made the Missile Mouse ash can right here in 2001, and I knew that I loved to do comics, and I knew that whether I was good at it or not, it was something that I wanted to do someday. And so I always tried to keep doing these side projects and these side things. I was a part of an anthology called Flight. I did stories for Flight 1 and 2, Flight Explorer, another anthology called Out of Picture. These were all comic stories that I did. That led to me doing my full Missile Mouse graphic novel. I did 2 of those. And that led to also doing children's books, illustrating children's books. You can see the Antler Boy Kickstarter here. The Drawings Kickstarter is another one I did, drawing Rocket Raccoon for Marvel. And you can see that around here I made a decision that I really wanted to do this stuff full time and this stuff not so much full time. And so things really started to taper down on the day job thing, and the side projects really started to become the main thing in these later years. Now there's another timeline as well on top of this, and that is my social media internet presence timeline. I got my first website in the late 2000, and that's where I started posting my artwork and sharing it with people. And then a thing called, I found out what forums were. There were art forums all over that artists would frequent, and so I'd post my work on there and share it, and that gave way to blogs. So all through these years, I kind of just posted my work on blogs and forums. And then I discovered Twitter, and at first I hated it, I didn't understand it, and then one day it clicked. It took me like 6 months of playing around with it, and it finally clicked. And I was like, oh, I get it. And Twitter led me to Instagram, which led me to Tumblr and Facebook, and now I'm on YouTube, and I try to at least try out every social media thing and see how it works for me as an artist and promoting myself. There's one more timeline here, that's Inktober. In 2009, I started Inktober, which is a worldwide drawing challenge. And so you could see in 2009, I did it every year since then. This was the 6th year I've done it in 2015. And I don't know, but I think Inktober may have played into some of this other stuff going on too. You kind of have to look back at life and see how all the pieces fit together. I'm still trying to figure that out. Art Drop Day here, it's another thing I started where artists, I'll talk more about it later, but where artists leave it's kind of like a scavenger hunt. And then SVS right here is an online school that I started where I could, me and another artist here in Utah, we kind of worked together making classes and sharing these classes online so that we just wanted a way for people to have access to art courses and an affordable way to learn and to be able to do it on their own time and their own schedule. Because not a lot of people have access to art schools, and it's been a pretty good success. So we've been doing that as well. So this is my timeline. You can see, this is the runway, and I'm kind of taxiing and starting to get a little bit of air, and it's really I feel like things are I could finally leaving this runway, and I feel like things are working. So it's definitely a lot busier these days. All right. First thing, my first job was 20th Century Fox. I worked on Bartok the Magnificent, and I worked on Titan AE. And this was it was a hard decision. I was learning so much in school, and for me to leave that to go work in animation was on one hand like a dream come true. And on the other hand, it was scary because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I looked at all of the artists that worked around me as my teachers. And I went to them with assignments that I gave myself. I'm working on this illustration. What should I, how can I improve it? And I would go talk to the background painters. I would go talk to the storyboard artists and the concept artists, and every one of them would take my work and draw over it and tell me what was wrong. And I really looked at at them as an extension of my schooling. Even though I wasn't sitting in a classroom, I was sitting in a classroom all day with hundreds of professionals. The other thing too is it was interesting to me. I had never, up until that point, I had only met a handful of people who actually made a living doing art. And here I was working at a studio where it was 300 people, all making a living, supporting families with, they had mortgages and they owned cars and they were doing just fine, and they drew for a living. And it was like a major, just a shift in my understanding of how the world worked. That yes, this was possible, and this was a career path for me. Okay, so this is my first lesson from that. Learn from those around you. Okay, that's lesson number one. And from that point on, I always looked at the place that I worked, whether it was a physical building with people there or it was an online thing or something. I always looked at the people who were nearest me and around me to learn from them, whether they were better than me or not as good as me. I'm always trying to learn from those around me. So that's my first lesson. Okay, next thing. I got laid off. They closed down that studio. They laid off all the artists, and there I was, what do I do now? This was my one shot at having a career drawing and doing art for a living. And I didn't know what my options were. I didn't know what I should do. And a guy at church said, Jake, I work at this call center. It's a great job. You're really good at talking to people. You should come down here and I can get you a job. And I dragged my feet to that job interview. I was like, here we go. I guess the dream's over. And I sat down in the job interview, and he's looking at my resume, and he's like, well, no schooling. You worked at an animation studio. And there's some other things that I did. I won an art award here, and the guy looked at me. He said, do you really want this job? And I looked at him, and I said, you know what? I don't want this job. And I left that feeling just horrible because I needed a job. I'd just gotten married, and I had this, we had to pay rent and all this stuff, and I came home and I said to my wife, I don't know what to do. And she said, hey, there's a museum down the street, the Mesa Southwest Museum of Natural History, and they are expanding and they're building a dinosaur wing. I'm sure, who knows, they might need an artist. You should just go down there and check it out. So I went down there and I talked to the guy in charge, and they were building this huge dinosaur wing, and he's like, oh, you're an artist? Yeah, we actually could use you. We need someone to paint the rocks to look like real rocks, and we need just odd art jobs done for the museum. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, you're hired for the summer. I was like, whoa, okay. So that became lesson number 2, in that there's always work for an artist. No matter what, people need artists. They need someone creative that can do something. You just have to find it. All you have to do is look and ask, poke around. There's always going to be work for you. And that's something that I found from that point on. I knew that no matter what, I could talk to somebody, I could find somebody, I could network something and find a job, find some kind of work. All right. So that was just like a summer job, but that gave me the confidence and it added work to my portfolio, and I set out to go get like another job working for another studio, which led me to Fanagram Entertainment. And there's this Korean company that actually had like a satellite office in Phoenix, Arizona. And they hired me. They said, yeah, we actually could use a concept artist. And so I worked on this weird thing called Shining Lore and Kingdom Under Fire. I designed a bunch of orc-like creatures. And that led to a job at Real Effects, which they're now doing animated films. But at the time when I worked for them, we did toy commercials. Spy Troops the movie was actually an hour-long commercial for G.I. Joe that was released on DVD. I worked on that, storyboarding and designing characters and all kinds of things. I tapped into my little girl side and drew My Little Pony for all the commercials and designed the Pony Castle, Cloud Castle, I forget what it was. Anyway, it was interesting. That led to, and I also worked on a thing called Guardians of Childhood. In Texas, we had a partnership with an artist named William Joyce, who was in Shreveport, Louisiana. And he's this children's book artist that's really well known and very talented. And I had followed his work, and it was so cool to be there with him, working with him. I learned so much from him. And one of the projects we worked on together was called Guardians of Childhood, which later became Rise of the Guardians by DreamWorks. But we worked on early development for this film. It's really interesting. So all that led to a job at Blue Sky Studios, where I worked on Horton Hears a Who, designing all kinds of background props and scenes and environments and just weird, whatever we could do. We had every Dr. Seuss book in existence, and we read through them all, and it was really quite the challenge to learn how to not only draw like Dr. Seuss, but how to turn Dr. Seuss's flat drawings into 3D, a 3D physical kind of environment. So it was interesting, it was fun. And what was nice is I got to work with a whole new set of artists that were really at the top of their game. One of the things I felt like at Real Effects and some of these other companies is I would get there, I would learn from those around me, and pretty soon I felt like I was teaching those around me more than I was learning from those around me as the more senior members moved on and went to other places. And so I came to Blue Sky as a way to find more, better artists to teach me and to learn from. You can see all this stuff. It was really, really just a fun, cool job. This was designing what the spec looks like up close. And I went in and kind of broke down like all the different pieces of how the spec worked. Then I went to Ice Age, and this one I learned a lot about just lighting. I was really trying to push myself how to light and how to add shadow and really make dramatic scenery. And that led to the next job, Rio, which we worked on, and this was all about taking a real environment that really exists and how do you design it and how do you simplify it or stylize it. I was in charge of most of the cars, and that led to Epic, which was the last film I worked for them. And this was really just another fun project to work on too. And I got into the machinery. I've always loved machinery and designing machinery, and so they put me on designing some of Bomba's gear and some of his desks and things. This leads me to my lesson number. We'll go through some more of these things here. Cameras from the forest. Oh yeah, and there's his pack. So this leads me to lesson number 3, and that's master your craft. I look at these years from working at Fanagram to Real Effects, drawing My Little Pony, to working on Horton Hears a Who, and all these things. These were my years where I really figured out how to draw and how to be good at the thing I wanted to do. Everything that you do throughout the rest of your career and the rest of your life is moving you into this thing where you want to master your craft and you want to keep getting better and better. And I looked at each of these jobs as a way to get better and to really master that craft. Okay, Dizzywood. Shortly after moving to Connecticut to work on Horton Hears a Who, Ice Age, all those things, I got a freelance job on the side called Dizzywood. And this was basically these guys in San Francisco were developing a website for kids, and they told me, Jake, we love your ideas, we've seen your work online, we just want you to come up with as many ideas as possible for this world. We've got artists here that can polish them and make them, fit them into the game. We just want to give you like carte blanche. Go forward and just design whatever you want to design for this thing. We've got some parameters, but all we want at the end of each week is a bunch of drawings. And then we'll decide what's going to work and what isn't going to work. So I sat down, and recognizing that they wanted a ton of drawings, I gave myself a goal that I would do 10 drawings every week for these guys. And I'd sit down, and every night I would work on trying to get out those 10 drawings. And at first, those 10 drawings, I realized like I can't spend a ton of time on these because it'll just take too long. So I had to do them fast. In the beginning, they were really slapped out. Some of them I spent too much time on. And every week I knew I had this call and I had to post these drawings for them to look at. And so every week it was just a matter of getting faster and faster at drawing these things and not so much worrying about the quality of the drawings. What happened after a year of doing this was the drawings I was doing at the end of the project were taking half as much time as the drawings I did at the beginning of the project, and they were 10 times as good. The style was much more solid, much more figured out. The environments, here's a map that I did towards the end. I was so much faster and so much better. And the lesson that I learned from this, is there more drawings? I really did. Okay, that's the last one. The lesson I learned from that is quantity equals quality. If you want to get good at something, you can't sit and try to perfect it once and do a perfect drawing and do a perfect whatever. It's by going through a mountain of work that you actually get good, and it's really through the mistakes, making a mistake, that you get better because you know what not to do. And so that's my lesson I learned from that. All right, what's the next thing? Missile Mouse. All right, Missile Mouse was a character I actually came up with when I was 14 or 15 years old, and I just had been drawing him forever. Here's some pages from my graphic novel. He ended up becoming my first graphic novel. My first publishing deal was with Missile Mouse, and I did two graphic novels over 100. I think they're 150 pages each, and it was a lot of fun. It was really cool, and it was the first time I did a full story where I got to figure out who the characters were and what the conflict was between them and the bad guys, and it was so much fun, and I enjoyed it. And the books went out there, and they sold okay, and I was happy with that. But it sort of didn't lead to more Missile Mouse books, and it sort of didn't lead to doing another graphic novel series. They kind of just stood there on their own, and for a while there, I kind of thought, is that a failure? I got this publishing deal, I put out these books, but they didn't skyrocket to the New York Times bestseller list, and And so it was a little frustrating, but I was happy that I did it. Then one day I got an email from someone, and I get emails pretty often. When's the third Missile Mouse coming out? And my kid loves Missile Mouse, and are you going to do another one? But this email was different. A mom told me, she just said, I want to say thank you. My son loves Missile Mouse. He would read it every day. And he was diagnosed with, I don't remember the specific kind of cancer, but he was diagnosed with cancer. And she said, one of the only things that brought him comfort was your Missile Mouse books. And later, he went into remission. It was not a problem that they had to deal with. And then later, as he was going into high school, he got hit with it again. And she said that what he did was pulled out his Missile Mouse books again and started reading them for comfort. And she just wanted to say thank you so much for making something that's comforted my son. And I was like, oh my gosh, if that's all the good that Missile Mouse ever did, then I would be so much, that's all I need. That's all I need from it. And what I learned from that lesson there is power in your stories and putting your stories out there. It may be a silly story about a space mouse in a Star Wars weird universe, but there's power in that can bring a person happiness or give a person a chance to escape whatever they're doing in their daily lives. And so that taught me that I should always keep telling my stories, keep putting my stories out there, just keep doing it. All right, Otteropolis. So this was just a side project I gave myself. I was kind of in between things. I didn't know what to do, and I started doodling these little characters, these guys, that were like these cute, furry guys who were also very serious, and they were really into their machines and racing. I don't know, it was something that I like the juxtaposition between the serious machinery and the cute little characters. And so I just started, I drew one, I drew another, I kept drawing them, I'd post them on my website, I'd post them online, and they were a lot of fun. I didn't know what would come of it, I didn't know anything. One day, there's the chomp bot. I got an email from a guy who said, hey, I really like the stuff you're doing here. What do you say we make a toy or make a model of it? And I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. Let's do that. So we worked together, and he had a team of sculptors and modelers, and they took it and they made this. It's called Industrial Mechanica. They made this ChompBot model, and they sold it, and I actually made some money off of it. It wasn't huge, but for the time that I put into it, it was worth it. And the lesson that I learned there are your side projects are valuable. You may not know what you're doing or why you're doing it, but these side projects can someday turn into something. And so always have a side project, always be working on something and putting it out there. Okay, Inktober. In 2009, I mentioned it earlier, but in 2009, I started a challenge for myself, and that was to get better at inking. I told my followers, online following community, I guess, people who went to my blog, I said, listen, I want to get better at inking. October's coming up. It's Inktober. I'm calling it Inktober, and for every day for a month, I'm going to draw an ink drawing. And hopefully by the end of the month, I'm better at it. And if anybody wants to do it with me, they can. So what happened was, you can see here, these are my first few drawings. It was me really trying to figure out the brush pen and how to get it to work. And maybe 5 people I knew of did it with me that year and maybe did half of it. But it was fun. And by the end of the month, and you can see here the progression of my drawings, like I'm getting more confident with my line work. I'm drawing more complex drawings and getting better with it. By the end of the month, I actually was better with it. And so the next year I decided I'm going to do this again. In 2010, I actually did it for a couple of days, and then I had an accident where I broke a bunch of bones in my face, and so I said, I'm out this year. I'm going to just heal this month. 2011, I came back. I did a full story. Inktober was less about learning how to ink, because I felt like I accomplished that, but it was more about me inking a story without words and learning how to tell a story that way. Then the following year, 2011, I realized like there's a lot of people doing Inktober. It's starting to take off a little bit, and I saw other artists posting it. 2012, I believe, I came up with the Inktober hashtag, and I said, if you're doing Inktober, post the hashtag so we can see everybody's Inktober work. Anyways, long story short, 2015, Inktober just finished, and on Instagram alone, there's 1.2 or 3 million Inktober posts, 300,000 just from 2015 alone. It trended on Twitter the first couple of days. It's like become this worldwide like thing that artists do. In fact, I have a friend who teaches at Ringling College of Art and Design, I think is what it's called, in Florida. And he came to his students and he said, hey, Inktober, do you guys know about it? And they're like, yes, if you have a phone, you know about Inktober. It's everywhere. You can't escape it. He's like, cool. Do you know about Jake Parker? I'm like, who's he? And so it was like, it made me realize, okay, this is way beyond me. This is not my thing anymore. It's just a thing that's going. And so my lesson that I've learned there is, where are we? Take on stupid challenges. It was just a stupid challenge to learn how to get better. And it became this really big thing. And it actually, I don't really benefit financially from Inktober, but every year I get a lot more followers coming to the Jake Parker table to see who I am and what I do. So from that little challenge came a lot of followers. I got better at my craft by doing it. And it reminds me that just because it's a stupid challenge doesn't mean it's not important. It won't become something. Okay. Here's the Antler Boy and Other Stories. This is a collection of my short stories that I had done over the years. And I wanted to put them all together in a book. And I went to my agent and I said, let's find a publisher for this. And she said, no publisher's going to do this. You've got stories for all ages. You've got stories that are a little more, not mature, but for older kids. And they want a book that they can say, it's for this person, not for all these people. And so I was frustrated. Kickstarter had kind of been going, and I knew a couple of people had done Kickstarters, and I thought, let's do it. Let's do a Kickstarter. So I launched it. And it ended up making 2,000 backers pledged $85,000 to help bring this project to life. And you can see here, this is the back end, you can see pledged via Kickstarter. We've got all this green. These are people who came to the project via Kickstarter. And this is everyone who came via external links. So Twitter, Facebook, my website, those were all people coming to it. The rest was through Kickstarter itself. That was great. I decided to launch a Kickstarter for a collection of my drawings, which I titled the book Drawings. And 1,600 backers pledged $63,000 to bring this project to life. And if you can see here, this time half of the backers were from Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, MrJakeParker.com, DeviantArt. These are all basically me just saying, hey, go check out my project, and people retweeting or reblogging what I said. The other half was from Kickstarter. Now I'm doing this current project, Skyheart. This has 23 days left. It's already at 61,000. Actually, it's at 62 now since I've taken the screenshot. This is basically, like it says there, an all-ages fantasy adventure graphic novel. It's my own story, and the back side here, you can see just this little tiny wedge is Kickstarter. The rest of all these backers are coming from direct traffic, no refer information. Now that's code for Instagram, because you really can't, the way Instagram's designed, you can't link from a post. You have to go through the profile, and so it's it's one of those weird social media things where you've got to have it because that's where the eyeballs are, but there's no way to track where people, how people use it. So, anyways, Facebook, my website, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, my YouTube channel, and the lesson I'm pulling from this is social media is a tool. Use it. And over the course of these 3 Kickstarters, really over the course of the first 2 Kickstarters, I realized that social media wasn't just something to play around and waste your time on, but it was actually a tool for artists to get their work out, there. And so from that point on, I looked at it like it's my job now to use this stuff. I didn't really like Facebook. I didn't ever go on there, but I saw how many people were on Facebook and other artists using Facebook successfully. So I said, okay, I'm going to figure out how to use Facebook. I'm going to use it for a period of time every day, and I'm just going to try and get as many followers as I can on Facebook. Now I'm at 60,000 likes on Facebook, and it's just from every day posting something, being a part of that community, and sharing it, and treating it like a job and not like something to just play around with. Instagram, I'm at 100,000 followers. Twitter, 15,000, YouTube, 20,000 subscribers, and it's all just from showing up on a weekly or a daily basis and sharing my work and interacting with people. And it actually turns into money doing that. So I'm getting paid to mess around on social media. All right, that's lesson 8. Okay, this is drawings 1, this is drawings 2. I'm just gonna flip through drawings 1 here. Hold on. Uh-oh, lost my place. So drawings 1 was a collection of my sketches and drawings that I had done over the years. Actually, it was just a handful of years. There we are. Okay, let's go over here. And I'm just going to show a few of these drawings here. You can see in the book a theme taking place. I like machinery. I like robots. There's robot dinosaurs. More robots. I kind of divided the book into sections. So then robots gave way to, here's my page where it's 1 robot and 2 cars. And then that gave way to more wheeled things. So now this is my wheeled section, which gave way to spaceships. And this was just me drawing what I like to draw. I would sit down either at the beginning of the day or the end of the day and just have a wind-down drawing, a cool-down drawing, or a warm-up drawing, and I would draw whatever I wanted to draw, and it was usually spaceships or spacemen or whatever. Let's go down here. Here we have my character Space Skull, which I changed his name to Skull Chaser because someone already took that name. This is a phone drawing. I was on the phone. Just all kinds of stuff. All right, so that's drawings 1. Here's drawings 2. And you can see it's kind of the same thing, more robots. And what was interesting about this is as I would post these drawings online and drawings in these books, I started to get inquiries saying, hey Jake, we've got a project where we need someone to design a robot. Will you draw a robot for us? I remember Google called me, and they found me via Twitter. This guy in charge of this project said, does anybody know anybody that's good at drawing robots? And everybody replied, Jake Parker, Jake Parker, Jake Parker. So they contacted me and said, we've got a project where we need robots designed for this web browser game. Would you be interested in doing that? I was like, yeah, I'll do that. Since then, other companies have contacted me, advertising agencies and different things saying, hey, we need a robot design for this. We need a robot design for that. So we like this robot you drew here. Can you modify it for us? So what that taught me, this is lesson number 9, is I could go around chasing people and saying, does anybody need me to draw a robot? Does anybody need me to draw a robot? Instead, I just drew robots all the time, and I became known as the guy who draws robots in certain circles. And what that taught me is that I don't chase work. You make the work chase you. If you do something, another way to put that is do what you love to do, and eventually someone's going to pay you to do that. That's lesson number 9. All right, what do we got here? Art drop day. Okay. Is there sound that connects to this? Or I forgot to ask that. Okay. So I'm just going to show a little video here. Can you hear that?
Here, I got my breakfast.
I'll just
and
put the
now I'm just
microphone
gotta
on
look
there.
around for a place to hide the artwork.
You guys hear that okay? Okay. We're gonna watch a little video.
So I gotta find a place that's recognizable enough that people know where it is. I don't want them like hunting around too much. Oh, check out this guy. Okay, I think I found the place where I want to hide the artwork. So now it's just finding the right spot here. Looks like we're right in between two government buildings, so it's highly recognizable. There's, looks like Capitol building, and I don't know what that is. Found a really cool sculpture. I'm going to hide it at. I think this will be perfect. Alright, just posted it. Now we wait and see if anybody's gonna get it. So maybe I should explain what an art drop is for those of you that don't know. It's really simple. I draw a drawing, then I go out somewhere in a city, in a neighborhood somewhere, and I hide that artwork. I snap a picture of it and post it online saying the artwork's here and whoever wants it can come and get it. There's something about owning an original piece of artwork. It connects you to the person who drew it. Knowing that you're holding something that someone else created and there's only one of them, I think that's kind of special.
If you can get footage of a squirrel, always get footage of a squirrel. They're the most entertaining animal.
Hey! So you're here for the art drop? Yeah. Woo! That was awesome. That was good running. Thank you, man.
Hey, Jay. Yeah, Daddy Longlegs got there before me, but he surrendered it to myself.
All right, art drop. Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were so tired.
All right. See you guys later. Bye. So how'd you know about it then?
My friend Gordon, I'm like sewing my daughter's Sonata costume.
Yeah.
He's like, run!
So you just missed it. Oh. So see you guys later. Actually, hey, since you made it, I'll do a little sketch. Oh, tomorrow's your birthday.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do a little sketch really quick. I'm just gonna do a little robot. Sound good?
Yay! Robots are awesome. It's a beautiful day for a jog.
Yeah. Someone who hustles that hard deserves something.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, there you go.
Thank you. Okay, that's good. Oh, it's beautiful.
All right, it's good to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, I'll be 39.
Woo! All right. So that's the reason I do these art drops. Number one, it connects me to others. It connects others to me. It's a way to brighten someone's day. It's a way to, I don't know, put a little light back into the world. And it's just fun.
Had to go back and get my camera. All right, so that's Art Drop. World Art Drop Day takes place every September. It's the first Tuesday, and it's me inviting artists everywhere to do what I just did, share their artwork. If you have a following, share it with your following. If you don't have a following, just share it with whoever, leave it out there, and maybe that's a way you can get a follower. Lesson 10, I'm not sure what the lesson is here. I just like doing it. Maybe someday down the line there will be a lesson like evident to me, but right now I just feel like art drops are the thing I should do every once in a while, and I really do enjoy them. All right, what do we got here? That's it. Thank you. This is my online things you can follow me on. And of course, there's my website, and I'm happy to take questions. Yes?
Do you always wait around for your art drop?
Not all, it depends on if I'm in a hurry or not. I'd like to meet the people, so every other one I do. We did a cross-country art drop. It was my wife's idea. She's over there. We were driving from Utah to New York and back, and we were like, we got to do something fun with this road trip. And so she's like, why don't you drop a piece of art in each state? And I'm like, that's genius. So each state, 17 states total, I did an art drop in each state. And we really couldn't wait around for each person because we would just drop it and go. And all of them except one got picked up. So it was a good stunt, I guess. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, Jake. Thanks for coming. I'm like a huge fan.
Oh, thanks.
I've heard you talk about your creative bank account
Mhm.
before on your videos, but I was just going to ask, when you get like really exhausted and really uninspired,
Mhm.
what are some of the things that you do to kind of stay inspired or get yourself back in like the creative groove?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Two or three things. Exercise is huge for me. I'll go running or I'll go to one of the classes here at the rec center. And that just something about turning my brain off and letting my body just go and get all sweaty and everything, it recharges me. And actually a lot of my really good ideas, whether drawing or whatever, have come to me during a run. So I like to just go and run for an hour and see what happens. The other thing too is the idea of the creative bank account she mentioned is you have this bank account, and if you want to make a withdrawal from it, you had to have been making deposits into it. And so if your creative bank account's empty, if you're like, I have no ideas, it's because you haven't been putting ideas into it. So I like reading. I do like reading. I don't do it much, but I like it. I like watching movies, animation, reading comic books, and those types of things. And if I feel like there's this imbalance, it's time for me to just put things into my head. In the back there.
For an artist in a social media page, you talk about, promoting yourself on these channels.
Mm-hmm.
I started probably a year and a half ago, just started gathering following my work. And what would you say, what advice would you give, I guess, for getting exposure to your work and building that audience?
Mm-hmm. The main thing is being consistent. So you figure out what your schedule, what you can handle. And if that means posting a drawing every day, great. If it means just once a week, go for it. But you have to stay consistent. You've heard that saying that it takes like 7 impressions for something to stick, for someone to remember an advertisement. And it's the same thing with yours. People just need to know that either subconsciously or they're planning for it, that you're going to be posting something on a certain day or just be expecting it. And it's doing that for years, not just 1 year, but for a few years where that audience starts to grow. So being consistent, and then the nice thing about posting your work online is the online world is brutally honest. And so if you're posting work and it's not getting anything in return, it's just getting crickets, then you've got to change your work so that people start commenting on it and start sharing it and posting it. If you're posting stuff and no one's saying anything, go back to the drawing board and do something that people start talking about. Yeah?
If you're interested in getting into animation, what are kind of the skills that you have to know, like today?
Uh-huh. What do you want to do in animation?
I don't know, work at studio or something like that,
Okay.
I don't know, video games or
What I recommend anybody doing who wants to get a job at one of these studios is first learn about what the studios do, all the different jobs in there, and see what you are best at doing. These jobs at these studios are very compartmentalized and specialized, so a person is hired for a specific job. I worked at Blue Sky for 5 years, and I did environments and vehicles. I didn't do characters, I didn't do color, I just did tonal black and white drawings of environments and characters. It's that specific. So at these big studios, they're looking for someone who they can put into this slot and do this particular job. So the best thing you can do is figure out, okay, I want to have this job. Now I need to build a portfolio that shows them I can do it. So what did I send Blue Sky? I showed them all these environment drawings that I'd done. I showed them some character designs to show them I was well-rounded. I showed them some of my comic stuff because it showed my environment stuff, but they got an idea, okay, this guy can fill his position. And then another layer on top of that is, depending on the studio, you want to tailor your portfolio to that studio. So the portfolio you would send to Blizzard, who does video games, is not the portfolio you would send to DreamWorks. You'd probably send video game stuff, characters and fantasy environments or sci-fi environments to Blizzard, but to DreamWorks, they want to see really funky, stylized, animated things. Best thing to do too is all these studios nowadays have art books for every project, and you can go through those art books and look at what people are doing, and really see the bar that you need to work towards and get your work at a level. My advice also is work your way up to one of these studios. I didn't get my job at Blue Sky like right away. I worked at Fanagram working on Shining Lore before I ever worked on a major feature film. So that's my advice. Yeah?
So what kind of ignited your passion for storytelling, and why do you feel the need to keep telling stories?
Okay. What ignited it was, I think very early on, like when I was a kid, I liked doing little comics, and even in high school I would draw comics. The first thing I ever remember drawing that was a story was about an apple who bit a kid, and of course, and I drew it. My mom wrote the words. I told her what I wanted to say. She wrote the words, and I drew it, and I taped it together, and I made this little book, and I was so proud of that. And I think that was like the initial spark. And then I knew I just wanted to, I had stories in my head. I'm always thinking of stories. I'm putting things together, and I want to tell them. And that's what keeps me going. There's just things going on there, and I want to share them with other people. I feel like I have something to say, and I want to share it. Yeah. Everybody raise your hand if you have a question. Just everybody who has a question. Okay, I just want to make sure we'll just start on this side and work our way that way. Okay.
Just want to say I love Inktober. I've been following it for a couple of years, and I had no idea until today that you were behind it.
See?
I read that, I was like, oh, that's awesome. But also, I just had a quick question. Do you have an agent, or do you just take care of all that stuff yourself?
Yeah, so I have an agent who's handled all my publishing stuff. I've published for all the major publishers.
I guess a follow-up question is,
How do you come upon an agent? That's a good question. I've only gotten one agent, and she contacted me. And so my advice is have an agent contact you. But seriously, you want to create work and put it out there so that you're getting on agents' radar. So they're like, oh, who's this guy? She found me through another artist, so I had been networking, and she asked him, do you know any other people I could represent? And I got sent her name, and that's how it works. But be making stuff and putting it out there, and people will contact you. If not, contact them and just say, here's my stuff. You want to work together? Okay. Yeah.
What artists or artwork inspires you, or how do you find inspiration in really new ideas?
So I do look at what other artists are creating all the time. I'm very much aware of the zeitgeist and what's happening and what everybody's thinking about and drawing. I follow a ton of people on Instagram and Facebook, and mostly artists who do the kinds of things I like to do. But outside of that, I also follow people who aren't artists who post pictures of cars and who post pictures of military vehicles and architecture and weird designy things. And all of that stuff, what I'm trying to do is find the thing that goes together that people aren't expecting. So I might see this cool drawing someone did, and then I might see this cool building that someone designed, and I'll think, oh, what if I put those together? And I drew a building like this in a style like that. And that's how you make things new and you kind of rework things into something that becomes your own thing. As far as favorite artists over the years, Bill Watterson, who did Calvin and Hobbes, I think you can kind of see that in my style, the line work. There's an artist named Mike Mignola who does a book called Hellboy. I love the way he composes imagery. There's a French artist named Mobius who has really interesting line work and just a neat compositional style. I'm looking at a lot of these. I like people who draw with line work because that's what I do. Okay, yeah.
How do you balance your time between making your work and managing your online presence?
Okay, so I just, every morning I make a to-do list. And I put on a to-do list, make a drawing, post the drawing. And I make sure that I make time for that. It might be every other day or something like that, but I chisel out a half hour or an hour every day to keep up, answer comments, post my work, just keep up with everything. Yeah. Yes? Uh-huh.
What advice would you give to someone who doesn't have the time to really focus on art? I'm a stay-at-home mom.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to feel like my children are deprived.
Right.
So how do I balance that? What advice would you give?
So you want to, of course, balance your time with your family, but also do something to push your career along. That's hard because it does take a lot of time, but I think you need to find the amount of time that works and see how much you can get done in that amount of time. So there's going to be some efficiency stuff that you got to figure out and really chisel that out so that you can maximize that. If you have an hour in the day, that you can do it the best you can. So maybe you spend, if you have an hour every day, maybe you spend 3 hours in 3 consecutive days creating a piece, and then you share it with somebody on the 3rd day or on the 4th day. And it's something like that. It's gonna take longer to get your work out there just because of the limited amount of time, but like I told the other gentleman, it's consistency. So if people just know, oh, she puts out something every week or every other week, they just get used to it and they start to expect it, and you become one of their favorite artists, and then you put out a book and they buy it, and there you go. Yeah.
What are your favorite tools to draw with?
Favorite tools, I love brush pens. I used to exclusively use the technical pens, but because I'm a line work artist, I love brush pens because they're quick. And I have the same problem she has in that I want to get as much done in the time that I have. And so I tried to find a tool and a style that I could get more bang for my buck. That's why I don't do a ton of watercolors anymore. They take a long time. And that's why I built this fan base on Instagram for line drawings instead of fully rendered colored pieces that take 24 hours to do. I love doing art, but on the other hand, I'm also very mercenary when it comes to it. I want to make money doing it. And so it's this balance of creating something beautiful that contributes to the world, but also being able to support my family. We're going to backtrack to Woman in Red.
I think you need to say, Jake works from 8:30 in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, and then 8 o'clock at night till 11, 12, 1, 2.
Depending on the project. That's my wife, by the way. Yeah, I do put a lot of hours in. I'm trying to get down to where it's 40 hours a week instead of however many it is, but there's a lot of time in there. Yes?
Do you consider doing, at a point in your career, to have kind of a production team to help you with some of these projects?
Yeah, and sometimes I do farm work out to assistants. depending on my budget at the time, what can I afford to do, and how much time I have available to me, I'll hand work to people to do base colors, and they'll go in and add shadows and things like that. At some point, I want to have like a full-time assistant who answers emails. I never want to do email again. Anyway, yes, purple coat.
I was wondering what you do with copyright issues. I'm looking at your Instagram,
Mhm.
tons of pictures you just put up there,
Mhm.
and where's the starting has already had a few colors. And it's shocking. So, what do you do?
What do I do when someone steals my work, or how do I feel about stealing other people's work? Okay, I'll answer the one. I love it when people steal my work, because what's cool about the internet is, and especially with the amount of following that I have now, is it's self-regulatory. So if someone posts something I did, they'll be like, oh, that's cool. Actually, Jake Parker did that, not you. And they'll take it down. Or what's also nice is people start doing fan art of characters that I've created, and that just draws more attention back to me. Fan art, on the other hand, is what I call it when I'm stealing other people's work and drawing their characters, Marvel characters, whatever. Fan art is, there's a community of fan artists who draw these famous characters in their own style, and people love that, and it's great for bringing people to your table to see what you do. You asked, like, what can you do to get exposure, or how can you build your following? And that's one of the things, is draw all the characters from Harry Potter in your style, and then post them all online and say, if I did Harry Potter, here's how it'd look. And you better believe people are going to share that and say, oh, look at this guy's version of Harry Potter. Now, don't go sell it and make millions of dollars off of it, because then they'll come hunt you down. But as long as it's an exposure thing and you're just sharing it there and you're trying to be a part of this community of people who love this thing, I think it's fine. Yeah.
Drawing that you post every day, you post the same drawings for all the different.
Yeah. So when I do a drawing, I'll post it on Instagram. Usually I do Instagram first, and then I'll take that drawing and post it on Twitter, then Tumblr and Facebook. And a lot of times what I'll do is sometimes I'll videotape myself drawing that drawing, and then I'll post that on YouTube so you can see how I made it, and I'll add some talking to it. When you're posting your work online, all these social websites are connected, so you can push one button and your image will go to all of them. And that is cool for saving time, but what's interesting is people have a social media website that they love and that they're loyal to. And so there's Twitter people, and there's Facebook people, and there's Tumblr people, and there's Instagram people, and that's what they go to and that's what they use. And if they go through and they're scrolling through Twitter and it says, Jake Parker posted a photo, and you have to click on a link to Instagram to see it, they're just going to skip over it. And what they want to do is look at that image native to the website that it's in. So it's a little more work on your part, but you want people to feel like you are a part of that community as well. And if you're doing it right, you should be a part of that community. So, and when you post a picture on Twitter or any of these other things natively to it, those websites usually support that and will show the picture bigger and will showcase it, or their algorithm will send it out to more people, like in Facebook, for example. So it's a little bit more work on your part, but it's a better way to show that you're like playing, you know what I'm talking about, playing with the group that you're making art for. Yeah?
You talked a little bit about engaging with your community.
Mm-hmm.
How much time do you spend actually engaging, like looking at other people's stuff on Facebook or Instagram? Do you go to all of those social media accounts and look through your following? Because that just would take hours and hours every day.
It would. And some days it does. No. I'm an Instagram person, so I do look at almost all my Instagram people when I'm not busy. Now that I'm running the Kickstarter and other things, I'll scroll through like for a minute and kind of see, and I'll go to my favorite people and see what they posted. But typically I do know what's going on Instagram. Tumblr, sometimes I would go through that, but for the most part, I'm just there sharing my stuff. Like I never really go on Facebook and see what people are posting. Twitter, it's really hard to just follow what's going on. So for the most part, it's me being a content provider instead of a content absorber. But my favorite is Instagram, and that's where I do participate. What I'll do, though, sometimes, and there's a lot of power in this small act, and that is somebody that's totally not following you, or maybe they're following you, but going to that person, seeing what they posted, and just leaving a comment and saying, oh, this turned out really nice, I like it. And one day I just tried to do like 50 comments in a row on all different things, and people started following me back just from like leaving comments, or they'll come and leave a comment on my thing. So every once in a while it's good, like if you're on Twitter, you may not be following the stream, but you see one thing there, just reply to it and say, oh, that's really cool, yeah, I like that. It makes a huge difference, just shows that you're being active when you can. Any other questions? Yes? What excites me about Skyheart is it's a story that I've been wanting to tell for a long time. I came up with the idea initially 15 years ago, and every other story that I've done has not been Skyheart. And I've always wanted to do it, but it's been this huge, big thing that I felt like I didn't have a handle on, or it wasn't good enough to do. Now I feel like I'm good enough to do it, and I want to do it. I want to tell it. So it just excites me to make it and create it and put it out there, show people. So back it so I can make it. All right, any other questions? Let's get your artwork and post it on the wall and see. We're going to have...
Do you have a giveaway under someone's chair?
First one's gonna be around.
Oh, okay.